Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the 2024 KTM 1290 Super Adventure R. This is the top of the line adventure bike, and the last bike I reviewed before this one was actually KTM's entry-level adventure bike, the 390. And the cool thing about KTM's adventure bikes is what they do, no matter what class they're in, is they give it generally class-leading power, generally class-leading features, and basically class-leading bike, and that's exactly what this is. But this is a whole long way up the ladder from that 390. It has so many features, a lot of automotive features, a lot of really good motorcycle features that's class-leading. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through this bike in detail. Now, I've already reviewed the Super Adventure, but not the Adventure R. It's a lot more road-going version. This is a lot more off-road focused version. Now, you can do anything with both of them, but there are some key differences. So if you want to see a comparison, a side-by-side comparison between the R and the regular Adventure, let me know in the comments, because I have both bikes here available. I can do that soon if you want. But what we're going to try to do is kind of show you what this one's all about in as brief of overview as I can do in about 20 minutes or so we can go through bit by bit to help you decide if it's best for you, and hopefully to try to show you some of the things that the other videos aren't showing you. So I want to thank McLean Sports here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. They give me complete access to their entire vehicle line, not just KTM, but if you're interested in anything in the KTM lineup, we're going through it all. Everything from 2024 we will have. And like I said, if you have questions or comments that I don't get to in this video, make sure you let me know in the comments below, because I can come back to this bike and any other bike again and again and again to make sure that we build a video database of the information you need. So there you go, there's your reason for subscribing. All right, let's get going with this review. So let's briefly place this bike within the motorcycling category. First of all, adventure bikes are awesome because they can do absolutely anything. If you think you need a cruiser to go long distances at comfort on the highway, you don't. These are just as comfortable, if not more comfortable. If you think you need a sport bike to go super fast, this thing's got near super bike power, and that's one thing that this bike stands out. So you've got great horsepower here, great torque numbers as well. And then if you think you need features, like let's say you got to go to maybe a Goldwing to get the features, or a cruising bike like that to get features and luggage, well, this thing can handle your luggage. It's got this cruise control. It's got all those kinds of things. So you have every feature you want. They're also good for all around town, but the big thing is they're great off-road, and KTM's adventure bikes, especially when you do it up in the R spec, are really, really good off-road. They're built from the ground up to really be off-road bikes first that are also very capable on the road. And on the R models, you're gonna see a little bit more aggressive tires, a few extra little things that kind of make it special. Now, one thing that's interesting about adventure bikes and what KTM does with a lot of their adventure bikes is adventure bikes are very, very tall, and they have large fuel tanks because they're designed to go way off-road, way away from gas stations, and you need a large fuel tank. Now, I point to the fuel tank here, but the reality is the fuel tank actually drops fuel all the way down here on both sides. And that's one really unique thing with this bike, because the knock against some of these large adventure bikes is they're too big and they're kind of unwieldy and they're kind of heavy and all that kind of stuff. Because yes, they are tall. We're going to sit across this bike in a second, but having that large fuel tank drop low, as well as just the general design of the bike, this bike does not feel nearly as big as it looks. A lot of this up here is just plastic anyways. It's not that heavy. And again, when you start dropping that fuel down low, you end up with a bike that's really, really pretty maneuverable and pretty manageable for a very large bike. So let's go through. We'll start at the front wheel. We'll work our way back through some of the features. We're going to work our way to the dash. There's a couple really cool features I want to show you in the dash, and then we'll keep moving through. So let's start at the front wheel. All right, if you've ever seen my videos before, you know I'm going to talk about something here. I'm going to repeat myself every single video. If you want to know the intent of a motorcycle, or at least the manufacturer's intent, start by looking at the front wheel. And what you see here is a whole lot of interesting things. So first of all, a little bit more knobby tire, like I said, compared to a lot of other, even other KTM bikes, because that R model is going to give you a little bit better off-road. So this is the Battle Axe Adventure Cross series of tires here. You've got great braking, so that kind of makes sense. You've got a ton of horsepower here. It's not the lightest bike in the world, so a lot of power, a lot of weight. You got to put great brakes on. And Brembos not only give you great feel, but one of the cool things about Brembos is they also give you a little bit less unsprung weight. So that means the weight outside of the suspension, unsprung weight, right? So that is a really good feature, because that's going to give you really precise control over your suspension, which is something to have. And again, you get the upside down forks. They're fully adjustable. We'll talk about them a little bit more as we work our way to the top of the fork tubes. You've got the spoked wheels in there, and then you got the little tire fill there, which has the little 90-degree bend in there. Just makes it easier to fill, especially with you get large Brembo brakes. You don't have a ton of space to put sort of to fill on there, but you do have that. The other cool thing about these tires is front and rear you have tire pressure monitoring systems, which is really handy to have on an adventure bike as well. So you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. So everything is built for strength. You've got a lot of aerodynamics that not only keeps the wind off this, but a little extra bodywork to keep some of the debris, mud, sticks, stones, everything off of the suspension area. So a little bit extra protection, in some ways kind of overbuilt to handle all kinds of things that you might run into. So that's the front wheel. Let's keep moving our way back. All right, so let's start by talking about the heart of this bike, which really is its engine. Now, on the website for KTM, they list it as 118 kilowatts. I have no idea what that is in horsepower, so I'll put it on the screen there for you. But this thing has a ton of power, and the way it's designed is pretty cool too. It's a V-twin, so it's just a twin-cylinder engine, but unlike BMWs that stick way out here, just nice and compact. Again, weight's low, the way it's set up. And again, a larger bore, smaller stroke. What that means is a big cylinder moving not too far. That's going to make it a high revving engine, or at least high revving capable engine. But a V-twin itself also gives you tons of torque, down low torque. So basically this thing has power everywhere. So you can kind of handle that. The bodywork here goes around those fuel tanks. This is bodywork underneath that fuel tank that comes around here. And what that does for you is it gives you a little bit of a wind protection built into function, right? So they would have had to bring fairings out here anyways. Now you've got fuel tank in there. And because it's a fuel tank, you've got a nice steel crash bar outside of that. And then up in here, you've got the fairing or the radiator in there. That, because of the way it's designed, is going to shift that hot air away from your body. So a lot of just smart, simple engine, like simple stuff that KTM's thought of and gone through to make it, really good. So really smart engineering in simple ways. So again, just creating space for that heat to clear out, creating the bodywork to give you wind protection while also giving you fuel tank down low, which lowers the center of gravity, while also having a V-twin engine that's set up in a way that also lowers the center of gravity. So you've got a lot of things going for you. For a bike that looks like it's massive up top, really a lot of the weight is down here. And like I said, that makes it more manageable. And it's got everything you need down here. So pegs down here, don't know if you can see that in shot. Yeah, just on the bottom of the shot. Rubber pegs with the, that you can take out the rubber and have those off-road pegs in there. Of course, you can stand up on this bike, which you're going to need to do for some off-road driving. So let's keep moving back from here. So moving back from the engine, you're going to see the suspension, the rear suspension in behind there. Now again, this isn't the best angle to shoot it at, but you can see the piggyback shock right here on this side, which you wouldn't be able to see so much from the other side. All of the suspension is adjustable on here. One little thing that's kind of weird is the little screwdriver head that you'd have to get into would be right behind here. It's right, right in behind there. It's hard to show you. So it is a little interesting that they put it behind plastic. They could have just carved this out and allow you to have easy access to that, but it is covered there. So there's an adjustment in there. Probably for your rebound or compression. I haven't double checked yet, but you do have piggyback shocks. One of the big reasons you have piggyback shocks is what that does is it takes the extra heat, the extra oil, and allows it to come into here. What that does is as the suspension compresses and moves in and out, it does create heat. That heat can actually stiffen that suspension, kind of slow the suspension response. Once you have a piggyback shock, it basically takes care of that. So you see anything high end, anything that's ripping down the desert, lots of washboard areas, anything like that, anything with a good suspension where you need to perform well on that kind of surface, you're gonna have piggyback shocks, and of course you do here as well. So before we move back and show you the luggage area, the handlebars here, let's just show you what it looks like with me, a proportionate 6-footer jumping on it. People always need to know my inseam. That's one thing I'm gonna have to get measured for 2024. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm basically a proportional 6-footer. Now, one thing you'll notice is there is a little bit of weight to move it up. Again, it's a big bike. However, I don't feel like I'm that tall in the saddle here. That's got a nice narrowing at the front here. And I can't quite flat foot it, but I bet you if I stretched a little bit, I'd be only a couple inches out either way. So I'm actually pretty comfortable. And again, for a big 1290cc, large, tall adventure bike, again, that weight down low, you do kind of feel it. Now, I'm not pretending that this thing feels as light as the 390 that's sitting in front of me there, from KTM, or that it feels as light as even like a traditional middleweight bike. It is a heavier bike, but it certainly feels way more manageable. And what's weird is for someone who's been on a lot of different bikes, especially just sitting on a lot of different bikes all the time, and I sort of focus in this point of view, the visual perspective here, like it feels like everything's so very large, but if you've just sat me on and I close my eyes, I would say, yeah, it's not that much bigger than a middleweight, which again, it is, but it doesn't feel that much bigger. So over here, you've got pretty good commanding view. One thing that's interesting is the windshield. It is adjustable here. I can show you that a little bit closer as we move on. A lot of people wonder why it's not taller. And that's basically because as you're standing on here, you're gonna wanna be able to move your body weight forward, move your body weight back, that kind of thing when you're going really truly off-road. And that allows you to have your helmet in the way or your head in the way of this when you're standing on the pegs, leaning forward, going up a steep hill, that kind of thing. So they do give you a shorter windshield. You can, of course, increase the size of that windshield. A couple other things worth noting. There is a little spot right here. We're going to show you that in a second. That is where your cell phone can go. It has a USB charger in there because your cell phone links through the app to this display screen. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but one of the cool things you can do there is get turn-by-turn navigation through the app right into the display screen. So you don't have to mount a GPS if you don't want to. There are various reasons why you may want to. There's a 12-volt port just below there. Again, all that stuff we're going to show you in a second here. Overall, seating position, very good. There is some width to the bodywork here. So on some bikes where your knees tuck right in tight, there is a little bit more width here, but you do have room to kind of move back on the seat a little bit. This one does have a center stand as well, so I could have thrown it on the center stand to show you better what it would look like with me on. So you do feel the width a little bit in your legs, but that allows your legs to kind of always stay in contact with the bike. One interesting thing that at least I find interesting is some of the KTM bikes, they have the graphics here is kind of built into the plastic. On this 1290, the top of the line, it's actually just stickers, which I find interesting. I think, you know, you would think that the top line wouldn't have that. So a couple little things worth pointing out. Overall feel of the bike, extremely comfortable. You can ride this all day long. One thing that's interesting though is this is a single piece seat. The other adventure that I looked at had a dual seat, so a little bit different seat. Lots of options there, I'm sure, in the Power Parts catalog from KTM that you can change things up. Let's move you in closer, take a look at a few other things now. So we'll briefly take a look here at the driver's foot pegs. We already talked about them, but again, that rubber that can come out so you can have that off-road foot peg as well. Now we're going to scroll over to the passenger foot pegs, which are in the center of your screen right now. Let's see if I can flip that down and keep it in the shot there. Let's flip it over. So of course, those don't have the steel mount that you see on the top of your screen on the driver's side ones. So this is purely rubber. Again, that's going to help with vibrations. Not that it has a ton at this size of an engine, but you don't have the ability to go to the metal grips, and that's basically because your passenger is going to keep their feet up there rather than, you know, on the grips where you need to put your feet into the mud, back on the bike, into the mud, back on the bike, that kind of thing. So pure rubber grips, and that's it, which is nice to have, gives you a little bit of vibration resistance. So let's pull out for a second here. You can see that, of course, you could also mount luggage up here. And again, that's one of the big reasons for going for one of these bigger bikes is you have the ability to take extra things, not just a passenger, but luggage. So you can see that single piece seat has a good backstop there, nice, fairly level seat. And the reason I want to film with this angle really briefly is because that seat goes level to the back rack. So that means even if you don't buy the racks here, or the bags that can clip into this section and hang off the bottom, you still have a fairly level seat. So we're going to switch views here and I'll show you what I'm really talking about. So looking at this rear area here, you can see that you can of course mount any type of mounting bracket that you want on here. Now KTM is expecting you to mount some sort of bracket on here, unlike the lower trim bikes where they, you may want to strap your duffel bag on here. And what this does is this seat sits just a little bit, half an inch or so up higher than this. Once you mount your whatever mounting plate on here to mount a true top box, you're basically going to have a completely level situation. And what that means is if you're just heading to the gym and you want to take your gym bag, duffel bag, that kind of thing, it will sit level across here, strap it down. You can strap it to here, strap it to these guys. Or if you want to keep the top box on, then of course the top box is going to fit. So again, this will be basically level once you get that plate to mount that top box. And again, they've thought everything through with taking luggage. Of course, you're going to take a lot of luggage on this, or you're capable of taking a lot of luggage if you want to sort of do a trip around the world. Let's move our way forward now and look at the dash and the controls. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about a little bit of it, but we'll try to show you some interesting things. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about with the controls is what you see in this little plastic bag here. That is a keyless fob. You'll notice there's no key hole anywhere on this bike. That is a keyless fob, just like your keyless car. One thing that's interesting is there's this piece. I have some theories of what that piece may be, but I'm not sure. If you own this bike or drive it, do me a favor, let me know in the comments below what that little small piece is. Just sort of let me know what it is. If you're unsure, don't bother commenting, but if you are sure, let me know, because then we can sort of make sure other people know as well. And again, there's your key fob. Now what I'm going to do is stick that right now in the little cell phone holder area. So this has a little bag in there. When the wheels, or when the handlebar is turned, that does kind of half close that door. So that is one thing. If it's on the side stand, you kind of have to pop that wheel a little forward. We're just gonna put that in there. And you can see there's a little bit of a rubber gasket in here. Again, that will fit a cell phone. It does have a USB port in there so you can keep your cell phone charged. So again, you don't need to have your cell phone mounted to the bars, but if you do need to mount them to the bars, of course you have a nice big sort of tapered bar here, lots of space to mount all kinds of things on the handlebars if that's what you want to do. Now, one thing I'm going to do is show you the suspension while I can, just kind of right in here. Let's just zoom right down. So you have two suspension adjustments here. Now remember on the, I don't know if you saw the video, but the other Adventure model, and on the R, it had, oops, made a little cut there, didn't mean to make, so let's just keep going. It had electronic suspension on the other Adventure model. This one does not. We're going to zoom in, that's what I was trying to do, but instead I stopped the camera. And you can kind of see there is an adjustment there. So I'm probably on the wrong angle here, but there's a white here, and if we scroll straight up, there's a red over there. The red is rebound, the white is compression. So you have something that is tool-free adjustments. And like I said, I can easily get my hands in here and click. They're very clicky. 1, 2, you know, so you can adjust them many different ways. And there's, you know, it tells you 0, +3, +6. So as it goes through, it sort of shows you on the control. Let's just take a different view and show you that right here. So you can see right on the suspension there, +6, +3, +0. So all of that adjustment, easy to do. And you can do it while you're driving and while you're riding. So on an adventure bike, that kind of matters because if you're heading from a smooth paved road where you're zipping around fast corners and then you're heading off to a trail, you may want to change your compression rebound. Again, red, rebound, white is the compression. You can see it right from the driver's area and you can do that. So that's the controls on the suspension. Let's move our way over to the other controls on the handlebars before we show you the screen. All right, before we show you these controls here, I just want to point out that there is a reach adjustable clutch lever here. This is a slipper clutch, assistant slipper clutch, so it's going to be very light for what it is. But you can also, because you can adjust where this sits by adjusting the reach for it. On a clutch lever that doesn't just adjust the reach, it can also adjust where the grab point sort of feels for you. So it's not necessarily that you only have to adjust it for larger and smaller hands. You can change where it feels. And sometimes just on a long ride, just you want to change that up a little bit as you go, you can do that. Now this also has a quick shifter, so you can, you know, once you get out of first gear, you just leave the clutch lever alone. You can go up or down through the quick shifts and do that. So there is adjustment there. That's on the clutch lever, and there is also the same thing on the brake lever, so you can put them exactly where you need them. And that's just part of having something that's really comfortable on a long trip. One thing I'll show you here is your headlights. So that's a flash to pass and regular on. So you can kind of see a regular headlight, high beam right there. Not a lot of movement to it, but very clicky feel, so you know exactly what you've done for your headlight switch. Now let's move down to these controls. So on the 1290 Adventure, you end up with a few different joystick style controls than some of the lower trim KTMs. Lower trim has a button up, button down, button here, button there. This one has sort of the same function, but a button in the center as well. So this is what you're going to use to control your big screen display. And this is a larger screen display than on some of the lower trim KTM bikes as well. Signals are worth pointing out. They're not usually worth pointing out, but they are self-canceling. I believe it's like 150 meters of travel or something like that. There's various parameters that can help it self-cancel. So yeah, so you do have self-canceling signals as well as you know, the regular signal. I wonder if that's tied into the lean angle sensor as well, because you have cornering ABS, cornering traction control. So this has a 6-axis IMU. In other words, it basically can tell if the bike's leaning, it can tell if the bike's wheeling, it can tell if the bike's diving, and it can also tell if the bike's sort of twisting on any of those axes as well. So that's going to help control things like traction control, all those kind of things. And again, all of those types of things you can control through this controller here. I believe this is your cruise control, because you got the cruise control button up there, the back menu for there. There's a resume and a trigger there as well, which are identical buttons to help you control in there. All right, far side, very simple. Actually, we'll show you the far side as well. Throttle side, worth pointing out, you have some sort of presets in here. C1, C2 is basically your presets. You have hazard lights, which is, I think, important on any adventure bike. You have the lock button, which is how we're going to sort of turn on the dash on this bike here. And then there's the full kill switch, start switch down there as well. So that's all throttle side. So let's hit that button in 1 second, and we'll get the dash to come to life, and we'll talk about what's in the dash. All right, one key thing to point out, I've got some glare in the screen. I kind of usually do that on purpose so you can see a little bit of reflection and you can see how well these screens light. Now, I will say when you're filming any screen, two things happen. One, it is never as clear as it is in person, and I can tell you this is a crystal clear screen. Also, a lot of the colors kind of wash itself out. It doesn't look as good in person. So let's just sort of see if we can zoom right into some of these things, kind of get the everything locked up there. All right, so of course, gear indicator, everything else. I want to show you one thing that's pretty cool to me is when we hit the menu button here, one of my favorite features is the bike info, and it shows you tires are green. What does green mean? Green means it's good. Battery's yellow. That's partly my fault. I'm running here because I'm running with the engine off and the battery in use. Fuel tank is green, that's good. Cooling system is blue. So basically when you look at the bike info, at one quick glance, you can see, are your systems good to go or where are they at? So we know the cooling system would be too cold because it hasn't been running, but just a really cool thing. I knew a guy who used to work for the fire department, and he used to always do a proper walk around of his motorcycle. I'm not that good, but this does still give you an idea of, hey, my tire pressures are where they should be, fuel tank's good. Like at a quick glance, you get everything you need to know right before your ride. So there's a lot of menu items in here we can cycle through. We got trip information, we got motorcycle information, we got ride modes. So let's just go to the ride modes for a second. There's street, there's road, there's, there we go, ride modes here. Let's go select that. We can got sport, rain, off-road, and street on there. There's the ABS mode, off-road, and road. So you can see what it does. It kind of cancels that, allows you to slide that rear wheel. There's the traction control system here. It's on and it's off. You have to press it with the throttle closed, I guess, to turn that on. But again, a lot of options in there. So we're gonna come back out of there. We're gonna go back down. So your settings are here. Oops. There you go, ride modes, and then your settings. So there's a lot of features in here that I can't show you right now. You know, all kinds of things. Anti-relay attack, that's pretty cool. TPMS settings, so tire pressure monitoring settings. So there's lots of things in here we can kind of get to. I don't know what this is. Oh, interesting. That looks like it's a key fob type thing. Display themes, you can go lighter or darker. I prefer the dark here, but some people prefer the light. Button illumination, I don't know if I pointed that out, but you can change the illumination. Not only are the buttons illuminated, which is pretty rare even in this class, but you can also change the brightness of them, so that's pretty cool. Daytime running light, you can turn it on or off. Bluetooth, shift light, you can change where that comes on. Cornering lights, this has cornering lights, you can turn them on or off, so many things you can do in here. Again, if you want to see a full video of the display in here or some of the stuff, we can do that in a future video. Let's just move on to the headlights and tail lights, and then we'll talk about a little bit more about this bike in 1 second. So with all the KTMs having a similar type face here, one thing that's worth pointing out is, to my eyes, this looks to be a thicker beam and a brighter beam. Now, one of the things that people forget about these daytime running light type lights here is that they are also very crucial for lighting up road signs nowadays, because although I probably can't show it to you, headlights and high beams are on there. A lot of these, yeah, you can sort of see that, at least your high beams are on. But a lot of times these headlights are such sharp cutoff that any overhead lighting or any overhead signage that usually relies on your headlights to shine on it for reflectivity, because the headlights are so sharp cutoff, they actually won't be illuminated by your sharp cutoff headlights. So these daytime running lights is often what is illuminating your overhead signage on the highways, and even something like a stop sign that rides above the cutoff line. This is what makes those easy to see. And because the lights have sharp cutoffs, they don't light them up. And because they're so bright, when they do light them up, they actually make it hard to read for your eyes. So it's these daytime running lights that are lighting them up, which is why it's cool to have that big extra light there on a, you know, rainy day, cold day, whatever, cold night. You're gonna have a lot of light spilling over to those reflective signs, and that makes it easier to see everything. All right, so let's talk about who this bike is actually for, and KTM makes that a little difficult. In the BMW world, you get a GS and kind of, you know, whatever trim level you want, but KTM has such good lower trim bikes like the 890R that for most people, the 890R is probably more the bike you need than this one. This is a big step up. It's a big step up in power. It's a big step up in overall physical size. It is a big technological step up as well. And although it manages its weight well, so does that 850R. So you kind of have to decide what you want to do. So to me, who is this bike for? First of all, if you want the best of everything, this is it. If you want a bike that's super bike fast, you know, at least in the power numbers, something that is can cruise all day, something that can take a passenger with you and do all those things on-road and off-road, this bike is going to do everything that you would want it to do, and it's going to do it very, very, very well. It's also the bike that, again, if you have to have everything, this is it. Now, there is a reason to move down. I still love that 390, and I said, you know, the 390 Adventure is probably the bike that I would go further on than on this bike, because just because a bike can do it, this bike outclasses most riders. That 390 is right on my off-roading level, and I would go further off-road on that because I just feel a little bit more comfortable. But that's really the key to this bike. In this class, there are a whole lot of bikes that are really intimidating. And to me, although this is probably near class leading power, if it's not class leading power, although it's certainly got class leading features and size, with the electronics in this, you can dial it down to a safer type situation for yourself, a manageable situation for yourself. It also has that weight that comes down low. And for the big adventure bikes, this is probably one of the least intimidating and most capable ones. And that's why this thing stands out. So if you're looking for a large adventure bike that's not crazy intimidating, that has everything from technology to power and everything else, really capable off-road. Again, this one's more focused for off-road. There's a Super Adventure, I believe the Super Adventure S is some of the term they call it in other markets, but the Super Adventure I've already done a video on, it's a little more geared to road. This one, Super Adventure R, is for off-road, but if you're looking for that, this one delivers that over and over again. So there you go, there's your review of this bike. Remember, if you want to see a comparison of the R to the regular Super Adventure, they're both sitting here right now. I could do that review if that's something you guys are interested in. We can kind of clean it up, keep it a little tighter to show you some of the real key differences between the two to help you decide. But again, if you have any questions, if there's stuff I left out that you want to know about, make sure you ask me in the comments below, because even if I don't know it, I will look it up, I will find it, I will figure it out, and I will make sure we get it on video so we all have a little video database of information. I want to thank McLean's again here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, McLean Sports. They give me complete access to their vehicle lineup, and if you have questions, they will answer it. If you want to see this bike in person, it's here, it's available. It's a 2024, it's available for sale right now. We'll talk to you in the next one.